Alright, today we are talking about adding and subtracting fractions, and yes, you need to write this down. Adding and subtracting fractions. Now, I've simplified it into 5 steps. Here are your 5 steps. Number 1, turn all fractions into a top and bottom. We're going to say turn everything into a top, bottom fraction. Step 2, find a common denominator. Step 3 is to add or subtract depending on what it's telling you to do. Step 4, move it over. Step 4 is keep denominator the same. We don't add denominators. And step 5 is to simplify and make a proper fraction. So I'm going to turn it into a proper fraction and simplify. It's an and sign. Simplify. Alright, now let's work out an example to see the steps in action. I'm going to start with the fraction 3 4/5 plus 2 1/3. Now my step 1 was turn everything into a top-bottom fraction. So I have to do around the world, if you need to make a note about that. Around the world. So I do 5 times 3 is 15 plus 4 is 19. So I have 19 over 5. And over here I've got 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So I have 7 over 3. Alright, so now we have to find common denominator. I've got a 5 and a 3. And I know that 19 over 5 and 7 over 3 can both go to 15. The fail-proof way to find a common denominator is just to multiply your two denominators together. And I'm going to get 15. So I know that 5 can go to 15 by multiplying by 3. And so I have to multiply the top number by 3 too. 19 times 3 is 57. I did the math beforehand, but just for kicks. 19 times 3. 3 times 9 is 7. Carry the 2, because it's 27. 3, 4, 5 is 57. Alright, so I've got 57. And over here, 3 to get to 15 times 5. So times 5. And I'm going to get 35. 7 times 5 is 35. So now I have 57 15ths plus 35 15ths. And that is completing my second step. My third step is to add or subtract the tops. Tops only. So I'm going to add 57 and 35. And 57 plus 35. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 92 over 15. That's just adding the tops. So I have 92. The next step is for me to keep the denominator the same. Step 4. Because we don't change the denominator. Now I need to move to step 5, which is to make it proper and simplify. And I'm going to do that by dividing 92 divided by 15. Well, 15 can't go into 9, so I need to see how many times 15 can go into 92. And I've worked this out beforehand. It is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. So there's 2 left over, and this is where we stop. Once I've worked my whole number, I stop. So this leftover piece goes over the outside. So it's 2 over 15. So here my answer is 6 and 2/15. The only difference if we had done subtraction, so if we just go back and look at our notes, if we had done subtraction, this would change to subtract, and instead of right here, instead of adding like we did, we would have just subtracted 57 minus 35, and we would have followed the same steps. So that's the only difference between adding and subtracting. Alright, these are your practice problems. Something to add. You can skip to step, what is it, 3, if the fractions have the same denominator. Write this somewhere in your notes. This is important. Seriously. It's going to save you time and confusion, probably. Because if you have 2/3 plus 1/3, this is a bad example. 2/3 plus 1/3 is 3/3, which is actually 1. A better example might be like 1/5 plus 2/5 equals 3/5. Because all you have to do is add your tops. And then we would simplify if we could, but we can't. And we keep the denominator the same. 3 and 3 stays the same. 5 and 5 stays the same. Alright, here's some decent examples. And I'm actually pulling these straight from this worksheet, which you're about to look at. I'm going to look at 3/5 plus 4/11. So I have 3/5 plus 4/11. My first step is to turn all fractions to tops and bottoms, which we've got, so we're good. My next step is to common denominator. Find a common denominator. 5 times 11 is 55. If you can think of something other than 55, you're welcome to try it. So I have 3/5, 4/11. This was times 11, so times 11 is 33. This was times 5, so this times 5 is 20. Now I'm going to work it out. 33 over 55 plus 20 over 55. This is where I add my tops together. 33 plus 20 is 53. And then I keep the bottom number the same. 55 and 55 stays 55. And if I am correct, this can't be reduced, so that would be my answer for that one. Okay, so that's an example of something you have to find the common denominator. And don't forget that if they have a common denominator already, then you can just jump to step 3. Jump to step 3. Save yourself some time, okay? Last example, I swear, but I do want to do one where we have subtraction. If I have 1/2 minus 1/5, My first step is to get them tops and bottoms, which it's already there, so we're fine. Then I have to find a common denominator. 2 and 5 can both go to 10. So I have 1/2 and 1/5. 2 times 5 is 10. So 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. So 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have 5 over 10 minus, don't forget, 2 over 10. Now I take the tops and I subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. And 10 stays the same, because I have 5/10 and I'm taking away 2/10. So I have 3/10 left over. And this cannot be simplified, so that is my answer.